The Jamie Drysdale era began today in Philadelphia. I'm Charlie O'Connor with PHLY Sports, and I'm here with your Flyers post-practice update from the Flyers Training Center in Voorhees, New Jersey. And there just may have been a little bit of a big news that broke yesterday during the Flyers game against the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Flyers traded top prospect Cutter Gauthier for Jamie Drysdale and a second-round pick to the Anaheim Ducks. So yesterday, the focus was primarily on Cutter Gauthier, obviously trying to make heads or tails as to why they traded him. If you want more details on that, check our emergency podcast, our post-game podcast, both on our YouTube channel and all of our streaming services, where you can find PHLY Flyers podcast, and then my in-depth article on the Cutter Gauthier trade and how it came to this at allphly.com. Yesterday was about Cutter Gauthier. Today is about Jamie Drysdale. Drysdale was at practice today, and he gave us the backstory on kind of how this trade went down from his perspective. He was actually in Nashville. The Anaheim Ducks flew to Nashville from Anaheim to start a 2-week-long road trip. He was just hanging out with some of his friends on the Anaheim Ducks team, and then he got a call informing him that he was going to Philadelphia. Then Danny Briere called him, welcomed him to Philly. And at 5:45 a.m. this morning, he was on a flight from Nashville to Philadelphia. And at around 11:30 this morning, he was on the ice here in Voorhees practicing with a Philadelphia Flyers uniform on. What I can say about watching him on the ice, the skating ability, which has long been his calling card, it pops. You can tell this is a guy who can really move. I'm excited to see him on the ice tomorrow. In uniform. The expectation is he will play on Wednesday against the Montreal Canadiens, and he'll be wearing number 9. But yes, they gave him Ivan Provorov's old number. Perhaps Jamie Drysdale can be the number 9 that was promised, the longtime first pair of defensemen, that rock-solid number 1 stud defenseman that the hope was that Ivan Provorov would eventually develop into. Delivered a few legitimately very good years for the Flyers, but in the end did not quite live up to the expectations that came with him being the 7th overall pick in 2015. Now the Flyers have the 6th overall pick in 2020 in Jamie Drysdale. My expectation is Drysdale will play against the Canadiens. It seems like the Flyers want to throw him right into the fire, figure out what they have in him, start teaching him, get into a little bit more of that later. The question is, how will they fit him into the lineup? When we talked to John Tortorella after the game on Monday and asked him about the roster crunch that they have, the lineup crunch, he said, look, Drysdale's going to play, but we don't feel like any of our top 6 defensemen deserve to come out of the lineup, so expect us to potentially run with 7 defensemen more often until we can figure out a way to ease this logjam in some way or another. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go with 7 on Wednesday, but I would say that's the expectation. So I would expect Drysdale to be in. He was on a pairing today with Travis Sanheim, so that could be your new first pair. Cam York was on a pairing with Sean Walker, presumably the new second pair, and then you had 3 guys in Rasmus Ristolainen, Yegor Zamola, and Nick Seeler, who seemed like they were in the mix for those final spots. My guess is all 7 of those guys will play and Mark Stahl will sit. So who comes out? Flyers would have to go with 11 forwards if they want to go 7 defensemen. My guess, and this is just a guess, I could see Bobby Brink taking a seat. Today, he skated on a line with Ryan Poehling and Nick Delorier. I don't think Bobby Brink quite fits on a 4th line with those guys. That tells me that just maybe he might be the guy taking a seat. Wouldn't expect him to sit forever. Last time he was scratched, which I believe was back in November. He sat a few games, and then came back in the midst of a Flyers winning streak the day after they upset the Vegas Golden Knights. That kind of showed that the Flyers are prioritizing making sure that Brink doesn't sit for too long. But I could easily see Brink sitting for this game, maybe even for a few games. Tortorella's hinted a few times over the last few weeks has been super thrilled with Brink's play. So don't be shocked if Brink is the guy that comes out of the lineup on Wednesday for Jamie Drysdale. Now back to Drysdale. So Drysdale, we spoke with him. We spoke with John Tortorella after practice today. And Drysdale noted that he actually has existing relationships with quite a few Flyers players. He knows Cam York quite well. He trains with Scott Lawton, actually, up in Canada during the summer. He played with Nick Delorier on the Anaheim Ducks. And he met Morgan Frost this summer as well. So he knew a bunch of the guys on the team that helped what was legitimately probably a legitimately scary thing for him, getting traded out of nowhere. He basically said he didn't see it coming at all. His head was spinning, but he felt really good that once the Flyers game against the Penguins got finished, his phone started blowing up with text messages from his new teammates in Philadelphia. So he was excited about that. He seemed very excited to get to know his new teammates and get to know a new city. The biggest adjustment, aside from the fact that he's moving to a new team, moving to a new city, moving to getting to know new teammates, appears to be in the defensive zone structure that he'll be playing. John Tortorella noted that Anaheim almost exclusively plays a man-to-man defensive zone structure. The Flyers play zone. Drysdale has played zone before because players pretty much have played everything once you get to the NHL, but in the NHL, he's pretty much exclusively played man-to-man. So it's going to be a transition, playing zone. John Tortorella reiterated today that basically he doesn't like the man-to-man, so don't expect him to overhaul his system for Jamie Drysdale. Plus, he believes that with Drysdale's skating ability and his offensive instincts, that zone actually will allow him to transition to offense quicker, which is something he's going to want Drysdale to do. He said watching tape of Drysdale in the lead up to the trade, he feels like Drysdale can attack up ice more than he has been recently. So we'll see. Keep an eye out for that. It's also interesting, too, that John Tortorella and Brad Shaw appear to be very much involved in the pre-trade process. I have a suspicion that the Flyers don't do this particular deal for Cutter Gauthier. I think they trade him. Maybe they don't trade him to Anaheim if John Tortorella and Brad Shaw don't give their stamp of approval that, hey, we like what we see in this kid. We think we could turn him into something special. They have a lot of trust that they, as in the triumvirate of obviously Tortorella, but also Danny Briere, the general manager, and Keith Jones, president of hockey operations, they have a lot of trust and faith in the coaching staff. Tortorella heads it. Brad Shaw, obviously, is the assistant coach in charge of the defense. They believe that Brad Shaw and John Tortorella can get the most out of Jamie Drysdale, and we'll see if they can start doing that tomorrow night, assuming that Drysdale plays, and I would expect him to be in the lineup against the Montreal Canadiens. That will be the official start of the Jamie Drysdale era. Again, I've been Charlie O'Connor for PHLY Sports. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And check out our next show, which will be the post-game show after tomorrow night's game against the Canadiens. We'll be breaking down, hopefully, Jamie Drysdale's Flyers debut.
We all silly like the mayor.